Welcome to the Planet Paintball podcast, the ultimate podcast for paintball enthusiasts. Each week, we dive into the world of paintball, bringing you stories, insights, and tips from players, coaches, and industry insiders. Sponsored by 1023 Sportswear. Looking for high-quality gear that performs as hard as you do? Check out 1023 Sportswear. And as a listener of the Planet Paintball podcast, you can get 20% off your order with the code Planet Paintball. Suit up, save big, and play your best.
All right. Welcome to the Planet Paintball podcast. I am here with Rob Long from Georgia. You might know him from Ultimates. Let me restart that one.
Polar opposite. There, no, that's fine. Only positive stuff.
All right. Welcome to the Planet Paintball podcast. I'm here with Robert Long from the Ultimates. He was head ref of the PSP for a while and many more things. Thank you for joining us, Robert, today. I've been looking forward to this one. And Clemson, you were one of the founders of the Clemson University Paintball Club, correct?
It is current. Yeah. There was a group before us, and then it sort of filtered out, and then the one that we started in 98 has been in operation since then. So yeah. But where do you want to start?
Well, let's start at how you found paintball.
My earliest memory of paintball was my Uncle Phil, one of my dad's shooting buddies, right? And Dad was a Vietnam veteran. And Phil comes over, you know how it is in the South, right? Uncle Phil. So Uncle Phil comes over with this Crossman 6-shot revolver, and Dad throws on a BDU top, like woodland camo, walks about 10 feet out, and Phil goes, whack, whack, whack. Uses some of his Navy words, and then all of a sudden I saw my first paintball welts. And I was like, wait a minute. I can shoot people for real? Like, and the cops don't come? Let's go. That's sort of where it started. I was in Lancaster, South Carolina, which is as rural as it sounds. It's just outside of Rock Hill, South Carolina, just by Charlotte, North Carolina. Wound up in 1994, got a couple of Splat Masters, the old, push to cock, and got the dueling set and started running around with my little redneck buddies playing in the backyard with, CO2 gram, 12 gram cartridges. That was where I got hooked, man.
Nice. So how did it progress from running around in the backyard with the buddies to the competitive side?
So in 1996, I wound up at Clemson University, getting a little old. And I was logged into a Unix system on campus and saw some guys talking about paintball in there. You could list who was on the system, and guys had like little taglines, and something said about paintball. So I asked them some questions. They're like, well, come on out with us this weekend. And it was the guys that had a club for a couple of years and then shut it down. But it was Walt Ligon, who was a professor, Chris Rumpf, Rob Ross, and Chuck Bethate. Oh, man. Walt had a Bad Boys Toys Typhoon, which was the most coolest steampunk paintball gun ever made. And I still haven't quite forgiven. No, I love Walt to death. He was a great mentor. He's still a professor at Clemson. He sold that, and I wanted it so bad. It's like $400. I didn't have it. But it had the threaded barrel and everything. Of course, it was some oddball thread. It wasn't like a copper thread, but it was an original Palmer Typhoon. The other guys were shooting F4 illustrators. I remember my first commercial paintball outing was Chris Vandenberg. Now he's Field Marshal Chris, right? Nova Paintball.
Uh-huh.
Chris's field in Greenville, South Carolina. VHA at the time. VHA Badlands. Yeah.
I remember VHA Badlands.
I remember I went out, and the first gun he handed me, I played with a Tipman Pro Light, I think. Just old school plastic Tipmans, plastic forearms and stuff. A little longer gun, shot that for a day or two. Started going with them on the weekends, spending way too much money, like $90 a case, back in 1990s money, which is like, whatever. But, and then started looking at guns, and then they pointed me towards a Spider. So I played with he gave me a couple different, he would just hand me different guns to try. I don't know if all of them are rentals or not. Chris is he's a solid guy. I love Chris to death. I still talk to him. Like, Chris is a solid guy. TJ, all those guys. And then I wound up with a Spider TL from 888paintball.com with a die, one-piece aluminum barrel, and that thing shot bullets. It was great. Shot darts, whatever. And then we got the club started back up. Mike Speth, Steve Smith, Charles Haley, a couple of the guys there, Armand Honore. There was a guy in Seneca, South Carolina for Mr. Paintball. So I met the Kilo brothers, Ryan and Eric. They're still playing. They're phenomenal people. So I met the Kilo brothers, and then I met Sam, who was running Team Method, which I think As far as technical skills in the Southeast, right? As far as a technical coach, Sam was one of the better technical coaches I ever ran across. Great guy. Hadn't talked to him in a couple of years, but he's still around. Wound up with an auto mag, 68 mini mag, right feed, buffed out the body, had the black and blue splash kit on it. And you could always tell when somebody was talking about their paintball stories that they're shooting a mag or a cocker, because the mag guys are like, ding, 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 ding. Cocker guys are like, chop, 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 chop. Because we all made the sounds our guns made. That was good times. Let's see, who else did I meet during that time? That was the early days of Clemson Paintball. I met Greg Mueller when we started doing business at Paintball Inc. They signed up as a sponsor for us. And Doug Brown, phenomenal guy. Again, Greg and Doug, wonderful, wonderful people. Greg sort of took me under his wing, and no matter where I went from then on in paintball, Greg made sure I always personally had a sponsor, right? Like, he took care of me on every team I ever played on. So
Greg is a great guy.
Is it okay on your end?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, so Greg was super cool. I actually still have one of my favorite paintball guns is AKA Merlin Body 12, which Greg gave me and the other guys, and I had to pay the other guys for my part of it. But it was we helped him move, right? He and his wife moved, and we helped with that, and that was great fun. And then let's see, where did I go after that? We played through there. We started doing MSPAs, MESPAs. Grant, who does all the ATTKX or whatever it is, attack stuff. Gant is just, he's a solid, good guy. Jay Holler, he was running Demented at the time. Let's see, Ken Barrett and the Gridlock crew. Those guys were always intense. They always brought everything they had to the field. Man, those guys lived it. And I remember when he opened his field there in Greenville, we'd go up there and do practices. Ernie Vaughn down in 6 Mile, and then his son Adam, they've since reopened that field.
Yeah.
Those are solid people. Salt of the earth, just good, like family style paintball, right? Church on Sundays, and then after church, they're out there shooting the crap out of each other.
Yeah.
His daughter Anna, all of them, man, that's a good group. Paul, rest his soul, it originally ran it, and then it split off and went over to Ernie. Let's see, there was Gold Dragon Paintball in the area, which was kind of tucked out in the countryside. A guy named Jack and his son Jeremy. They again, great, just family values, great field, small operation. I think around the year 2000, Phil Carroll also worked at the university. He started really getting into auto mags, and then automags.org kicked off. And so we all got to meet Tom Kay. I was working in a research lab. We got to talk to Tom about the design of what he was calling the Super Bolt, wound up calling it the Level 10.
Okay.
So we got to know Tom, not just as paintball players, right, but as scientists, talking about we got into some deep geekery. Tom is actually still a friend of mine. He's a partner of mine he's an advisor on one of the businesses I own.
Okay. That
guy is the most interesting man in the world. So what people don't know about Tom Kay, he's got the D.B. Cooper investigation stuff he does. He's been in commercial real estate. He's built and managed manufacturing systems. All of the less lethal paintball stuff you've ever seen. The Fabrique Nationale, the thin paintballs, the paintballs with pepper spray, all of that was Tom Kay's companies. He had Perfect Circle Paintball. He designed all of the less lethal stuff for Fabrique Nationale that sold all over the world. The man, I went to visit him a couple years ago, right, for this business I'm doing. He in his basement, because he does archaeology. He goes up and digs up dinosaurs, okay? He sends me home, because I tell him I've got a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, or 5-year-old at the time, 5-year-old daughter. He goes, does she like dinosaurs? I'm like, she's 5 years old. She freaking loves dinosaurs. So he gives me fossils. He gives me parts of dinosaurs with little like a miniature museum to put in my luggage and take home to my children. Gives you freaking dinosaur parts, right? And this is how you know this one's a meat eater. This is how you know this one could fly. The guy's great. He built his own observatory. I mean like the dome with the telescope that, pivots and has a giant mirror in it, the whole deal. He built one. Just welded it up, the whole deal, built the whole building. That guy is, he is the best kind of crazy. I love him to death. But he is the most interesting man in the world. The Dos Equis guy has nothing on him. Got to meet him, Load, SM5, all Tuna Man, all the AO crowd. They would come to Clemson. We did a few of the AO days there. That was such a fun time because, you know, the electronics were going well. You know, I wound up with like a Bushmaster, and then some of the guys were shooting Angels. And yeah, I ran those guns until I guess I started getting, once I started playing for teams where we had to run whatever the team gun was, right? And then when you're sort of on the sponsored side, it's different. In college, the sponsorships weren't the same way they were in the divisional and pro leagues and stuff, where it's like, this is your stuff, you're going to play it, but you're going to play 3-4 days a week. You're just, the sponsorships look different at the time.
Yeah.
Got to meet, we started doing some CFOA stuff with Method and Demented. Got to spend time with Larry at CFOA, and then like Josh Silverman. Josh is still a good friend. I can't speak highly enough of either of those guys. Josh is wonderful. I remember in 2002, we did the X-Ball at World Cup.
Yeah.
So there was the X-Ball debut where the first day of World Cup, or before the first day of World Cup, the pro teams did like a demo of it, but it was industry only. And then at World Cup in 2002, they had the first X-Ball field. Everybody could line up around and watch. It was an hour of field time. Just marathon games. And it was the college team. So it was us, LSU, West Point, a bunch of others. And it was really cool because like Rob Stottinger and those guys were over, like they were trying to coach us and give us advice because we're from the Southeast. The Strange guys were coming by. They were trying to help out. It was unreal because these guys, it was when college ball, I guess it was just so cool because all of a sudden, we had been divisional players or lower league players. And then when we started doing X ball, and these guys were talking to us like we were friends. And all of a sudden we're like, man, this is really cool. And so it kind of opened my eyes up to the rest of the sport. Bob Long was sponsoring through the 32 Degrees brand. He was sponsoring the college all-stars. So that was a lot of fun too. So they'd grab a few of us from different teams. A lot of times it'd be some of us from Clemson and LSU, the top two teams in college paintball at the time. LSU was number one. They had us, not LSU. I'm sorry. Where were those guys from? Was it LSU? I guess it was.
Remember. There was Draxel that was on top for a while.
That was later. That was later.
Okay.
Early days. I think a lot of it was just who had the college ball got better quick, right? Like the sport picked up when X ball came along. I think two things happened. The rate at which people could get a lot of reps in with X ball changed the game. The aggressiveness in X ball changed the game when they started shortening the format.
Yeah.
All of a sudden people were playing minute games, and that just changed everything. And then you started getting divisional players coming into college paintball, and you started seeing the age of the average paintball player going down. Because before, paintball was everybody that could afford it on their own. And then it came to the point where it was like people's parents were paying for them to play and like competitively, and the sport really started to blossom. So that was a lot of fun. Played some college all-stars for a couple of years. And then later in 2003, I went down and there was a field in Dalton that used to host a lot of our college tournaments.
Okay.
And they were starting the Angel guy, the original Bob Sandifer.
Yeah.
What was the name of it? The Regulators was the field team that Tom ran. And then they turned the Regulators into Tag Factory, the Angel guys, so Tag Factory. I remember when the first Speed came out, because that was my first.
Yeah.
My first team gun was serial number 3, red LCD Angel. It came in a box of parts from England, and we were trying to build a paintball gun for a guy who was working in power systems. He was a lineman. He got his arms blown off, right? He, let go out, boom. So we're like, can Richard play paintball? And so they're like, here, take this shotgun that was never supposed to leave the factory shop, right? And so we were trying to figure out like tongue switches and different things, like how could we rig it to him so he could turn and then fire the gun? So it started out as just sort of like, can we get this guy back on the field? He loved it, and then, he got blown to bits. And then he found a girl that liked him, and paintball didn't matter anymore.
Funny
like, wait
how
a minute,
that happens.
I'm done. He gave it back, and we had it sit in the box, and there was Bob's son Mookie, and there was a black LED and a red LCD. And so I worked with Kurt at K2 Paintball, which was at the time doing the Morlock board. He now has Morlock 3 out. So if you want like the coolest little board in paintball, go check out K2. It's just type in Morlock. He's got version 3. It'll sync to your phone and stuff. I need to get a copy.
Oh, that's cool.
Or they're like this big. They'll go in anything. If you've got an old gun that was done, go check it out because the headers are the same. I've got to order one. I'm going to put one in my old LCD and get it back on the field.
Nice.
And then, so that gun was one of the first ones that had eyes in it. Doc did one in Alaska. And then we started doing them there. So, we got his little desktop machine, started drilling the holes, worked out the wiring, changed the electronics, started tuning the Angels differently for higher rates of fire. The Angel speed was a lot of fun. EDP was really good. They were a Dynasty sponsor.
Yeah.
They were one of the first that really started pushing the boundaries of what the guns were capable of and then what the officials could manage. I'll just leave it there for everybody.
That's fair.
It was a lot of fun. And then shortly thereafter, the NYX board started coming out and, it was all of a sudden people are like, well, why should we worry about demounts? Just let the gun run. We've got halos now. One thing I'll never forget, I was head ref, one of the head refs. So I had a field that I managed for Lane and Rosie at PSP one year. I think it was 2003 or 2004. And I'm standing there and it's a 10-man field. Who was it? It was Rage. And I think of the yellow guys that were the Smart Parts team, Louis' team out of Canada, not a good guy. I won't say that about a lot of people, but Louis can eat it. And so I'm sorry. I don't hold anything against him. I forgive him for everything, but I just
Shockwave, I think, was the team
better.
name.
Rage ripped them a new one, and I loved it. I remember Chino came up. One of their guys was standing at the JT, the big rockets they had. He's standing up. Chino comes up, shoots 3 guys behind him, and then turns and shoots this guy. It takes the guy that long to realize what's going on because he's on his gun. He turns like this to get Chino. I grab his barrel because the other guys had shot Chino, so it's fine, right? Chino's standing up to walk off. The barrel's, he goes to stick his gun on the side of this guy's head and just rip the side of his face after he's shot out. Chino had already shot him like 3 times. He's like, bang, 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 and that was it. He didn't rip into him. It was fair, right? It was just bang, 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 done. I grabbed the barrel and moved it, and like 20 balls, because he had a creative gun, like just this string of paintballs goes right by Chino. He's mad, but he's about this tall. So he wants to have a word of prayer with this young man. I turn him around and push him, and I'm like, don't get a penalty for this dumbass. Sorry, I don't know if I can say that on the air. So I turn around. I just have an armband party, right? So I wound up leaving. I think there were 6 guys left on Rage, and I think I left 1 guy on the other end of the field. I didn't even feel bad. I didn't feel bad at all. I think the year before that was they had ESPN2. I remember being on ESPN2. That was fun. But I was actually playing for that on the college team.
Okay.
Reffing was fun. It was interesting because there was a lot of league politics I was not aware of, right, as a player. I understood like sponsors within a team, but there were things that, like, I ejected some players because by the rule book, I'm an engineer. I got a little bit of the tism, I'm going by the rule book, and I'm like, and those same guys, Louis' team, they had their guns, they would chrono on, and then what they had is they had a little stick attached to the inside of their grip that was long enough to touch a button on their board. So then they would click a button that would turn up their dwell, and they'd come off, and they were blowing apart people's paintball pods.
Whoa.
And blowing chunks off of people's hoppers. And I got one of the guns from them, like as the guys, like basically like we would teach people with like a weapon. Like my dad was a firearms instructor. So the same techniques work with paintball, right? You just turn the gun out of their hand, and then you've got their paintball gun. They're confused. And then you've got a chrono, and you're like, per second. And you're like, I watched you do this. You're done. Well, it's Louis. He's the captain. So, well, he wasn't done. But I understand, right? Like, people are paying for the league. All these other players are here because the sponsors are putting money in. It's big boy rules, right? It's fine. My problem was they were doing it to, like, the kid team they were playing, right? Because back then, you could come in as, like, the low-level, like, novice team.
Yeah. And you'd play the big guys.
You would still play one pro team.
Yeah.
And it would be confusing, and why did the game go over in 30 seconds? How did I get shot? What happened? Why are they already back here with the flag? Like, and then, the different levels. And then that was fun because everybody got to play everybody. But, everybody had a throwaway game, right? Nobody expected to win against those teams. It was interesting because I was learning a lot. And then Lane and Rosie over the years, you want to talk about two really sincere guys. I'll skip over a little bit and then we'll go back. In 2017, my mother passed away. My father had passed in 2012. Lane lost a son along the way. They're just so super genuine. They had reached out to me on Facebook as it was happening, bro, we're thinking about you. How are you doing? These guys didn't owe me anything, right? They were just other guys, right? And then in 2017, after mom passed, Lane did a 10-man reunion game.
Yeah.
On Saturday, it was everybody from the Southeast came in and played 10-man. Well, a lot of the old pro teams came and we all just Ultimate was there and, everybody else, Aftershock was there as something like Shockers or something. I don't know. Everybody did something a little funny with their names. On Saturday, PB Nation's like, there's a bunch of sandbaggers here, blah, 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 blah. And somebody's like, look at their jerseys. Well, on Sunday, all of them are on the sidelines and we're all still playing, right? All of a sudden, the stands are full of fans, dude. It's 2006 all over again. We've got kids cheering, stuff that paintball hadn't seen in a long time, and, all the old guys are out there. I still remember, it was a 2-on-1 the way one of the games ended, and it was Mike Paxton was on my side of the tape, and there was somebody else. That guy was pushing me down, and it was Hyperball. And I remember I was shooting the crap, trying to get Mike. He went into the snake, and then I turned and looked at the other guy just trying to check where he was, and I come back. Mike's fast, right? He'd come up 4 or 5 snake positions. I looked at snake 2. He pops up, drills me. Good shot, right? Square up. Mike is one of the better players in the world. No harm, no foul. I might have shot him on the way into the snake. I don't know. It's lost to time, and my daughter didn't. It was a rainy day. That's my story. But it was so much like a family reunion, right? Back in the AO days, I had met Simon Stevens. We talk about another solid guy in paintball. This is when he was still in the UK. We were still talking a lot about design, and he's just a phenomenal designer. We're talking a lot about aesthetics, how are Ferraris designed. He's another one of those most interesting people kind of guys. If he had been a generation earlier, he would have been one of the godfathers of paintball. As is, I love that I think, people like him and Mark Davis helped kick off what I would call the Renaissance.
Yeah.
Right? The Meteor guys, Gant and those guys too. They really did. They sort of got people re-enthused with the art behind paintball, right? You're not just buying some cookie cutter gun. You're actually building it. You're getting into the technical side of paintball a little bit. And that came back in the Renaissance time. That was really cool. So Simon was there with his truck, and it was so much like a family reunion, and I needed it. And both Rosie and Lane, when I saw them, first thing they did, big hugs, right? I'm trying not, it's enough to make a grown man, get a little, wet in the eye, but they're really good guys. I mean, I think a lot of people don't realize how much work people like them and Mike Boog from Florida, Boogaloo, I don't think they realize how much work those guys put into what we all enjoyed. Dawn and her husband from War Pig, capturing all the memories over the years.
Yeah.
One of the things that got me into paintball was watching Dawn and Josh and what they gave us. What they gave us was a snapshot we could remember later. And in the 2017 game, it had come down to, it was 3 of us left on the field, Jason Fajardo, Sean Martin, and myself. Texas Storm, Jason and Sean take off down the tape. I take off down the middle. They shoot their 2 guys out, and they've got the flag and they're running. I'm having a running gunfight with this guy from Storm. And Josh is standing perfectly on the 50-yard line going, snap, 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 snap. And this is probably the last time I'll ever be in a paintball magazine, and I don't care, right? But there's a picture of me, full tilt, dead running at this guy shooting, and a picture of him. And Josh, I actually shot him, but it didn't matter. Josh took good pictures of both of us. He didn't go for the paint spatter on the guy's face. They're good memories, right? There's always the guys that went for the paint spatter and all the dramatic shots. Those are great. Those are fun pictures. The memories that we can enjoy where we look at it and man, I had a great time that day, right? Josh and Dawn gave so many people so many good memories from paintball, and they continue to, right, when they do get out and shoot. Just so many good people that my life is so full. I've got a wife, kids. I love what I do with the church and serving the Lord, and the businesses I get to run and the employees I get to nurture. But the teams I was a part of helped me be a better leader in the teams I lead today. the drama that we saw on the field. Anybody's a fan of the Bible, like Paul talks about athletics being a model, but they are. Paintball is a sport. You get to meet a lot of people along the way, and the lessons you learn about what makes a good team, what makes a bad team, right? What makes an A player, what makes a B player. Man, there's so much you learn in paint. Yeah. And it's not just about shooting your lanes and, using good cover and all that stuff. I think I skipped over a little bit. We did the Tag Factory thing. I played with Jay Holler on Demented and Demented Kids.
I remember that.
Other guys kind of went their way, and then we had DK for a while. And then Jay left to focus on family stuff, and then the kids asked me if I would run it, so I helped them finish that year. And then Mark Davis, who I'd met at Tag Factory when he was still at Shock Tech, and he was going around doing, workshops, right, like little tutoring weekend thing. And so he'd moved to Georgia, and he saddled up with Ted over at Ultimate, and Mark was like, hey, Ted, come watch Rob play. And then he was like, hey, you should talk to Rob, because I was bringing my team to play. Ted knew me. And, we'd come there in college as college players when he opened his field. So then I moved down to Woodstock, joined Ted's team from the Clemson, South Carolina area. I was still working up there. And, I started playing, and I really felt like during the week, my life was in one place, and on the weekends, it was in a total different place. And I just felt like I wanted to be here. And, God was calling me to Georgia, and I've had such a great life here in Georgia. And Ted had started that as an outreach, right? He started that as a way to help kids out, help them learn. Another super interesting guy. So, what is it? The Last Catch, or, the fishing shows in Alaska and stuff like that?
Yeah. Deadliest Catch.
Like for years. And then when his kids got older, he went back to it, and he was taking his kids up, and he was taking some of the guys that had played on the team, and they were running fishing trolleys and working on the bank, in the fish processing places, and, learning what it's like to put in a 12-hour day. But they would work for a few months, make a ton of money, and come back and chill out, right? Other stuff. Now he's got like this whole company where they run these pretzel trucks to all the festivals, and they've got multiple ones, right? His son Cody will run one, Ted will run another one, and they've got people that work for him, and then they come back and do odd jobs like, he's got a Bobcat, a bunch of other stuff. He'll do, random stuff. Ted's been a really good friend, and I love some of the people I've got to see grow up in paintball, right? John Tinker, Tink, got to sync back up with him and his wife. When I got married, I took my wife to Fayetteville, North Carolina. There's a guy running a range out by Fort Bragg, because I knew she wasn't going to listen to me learning how to shoot. So I took her up there and, spent a few weekends up there getting trained. And so she got to meet John and his wife, Carly. Sweet, sweet couple. He's not the Tinker everybody remembers. He's calmed down a little.
Yeah.
And he was quite passionate when he was younger. So, so is his wife. Yeah, so the Jay Holler thing was good fun. Getting on to Ultimate, playing, I played for the kids team. I was sort of the captain of that. And then there was JB on the pro team, and, we sort of ran the guys and had a good time, took care of that for Ted. They rostered me. I never played on the pro side. I was rostered all the time. I would, I would tech the guns and stuff with Mark in the booth, and it was like, yeah. But the thing was, those guys were at the field more than I was, right? I was at church on Sunday mornings. They were all playing paintball Sunday mornings. I was at work on Fridays, building a career. You get out what you put in. And those guys were there 4 days a week playing paintball. And I don't know if anybody outside of, maybe 5 or 6 teams has what we used to have, where we had pallets per week, paint to shoot, and we would go through that many. And then it was just the number of reps that we got. And then later with the guys like Sean and Jason Fajardo and Josh Baskey, I played with Matt Sossaman. I met him back in 2000 something, playing with the Wyzong brothers on a team called the Nobodies in CFOA. And I would just show up at a local tournament, right? Like, no idea, gun bag, just hired gun style, right? And they're like, hey, we got your paint. Can you, right? So I'd run with whoever would, let me play, right? I just didn't want to pay. And so these guys were like, hey, come. And I think I played 2 or 3 tournaments with them. Still got some fun pictures with Matt when we were both, like, a good picture of both of us playing. It comes up every couple of years. We both joke about it. Matt's a really cool guy. And then, the thing with Ultimate and Ultimate Kids, I guess, I sort of got to 2008, and then, the housing crisis hit, and the economy tightened up. and all the sponsors started pulling back. And, we tried to keep it going for a little bit, and I just didn't feel, my heart just wasn't in it anymore. Ted and everybody finally pulled back. Since then, mostly retired, right? Scenario games here and there, go out and occasionally with Mario. I think a lot of people know Mario. He had
Nitro.
Yeah, he had Nitro up here in Georgia. And there was always old guys out there, right, wandering around. You never knew who you'd meet. I was out there one day. Todd Martinez was out there. Both of us had gotten older, grown beards, right, gray hair. We're like, I know you. Like we got walkers or something, right? And finally I was like, Todd. He goes, Rob. And we're like, but we've been walking around all day. He was reffing. I was walking around with playing hopper ball. Everybody's, dumping pods and pods. So I'm walking around with kids, telling them where to shoot and have a good time and, just not getting shot. And Todd's like, how are you not getting hit? And just started talking to me. And we're like, we know each other, right? Because, if you just know where to stand, you don't get shot, right?
Yeah.
It's just paintball. And that was a lot of fun. This year, I went up with Mark Davis and Ted and I went up. Ted lost a daughter the year before. So he lost a daughter in a snowmobile accident in Alaska. And so I had told Mark I was going to come up to the event in 2024. And this was in 2023. I was between jobs at the time anyway. I'd done 13 years with the company. I was trying to figure out what was next. But I was like, Mark, I'm going to be there. I'll figure it out. And he's like, hey, do you think we can get Ted to come? Because Ted had gone through this thing. And we got in the car and we drove to Illinois. 10 hours in the car. Good fun. He was probably tired of hearing me talk. Ted is good people, though. And we just walked around, neither of us had worked on our guns, right? So we're over there teching guns most of the day, go out, shoot a gun, it leak down, we go back and, we're throwing parts. Jason Antle was there. I got to meet Angry Antle, a really good guy, just seeing how he takes care of people. And, Chris Fosnich, I forget, but he does a lot of the pneumatic, automatic cocker stuff.
Okay.
So some of the people now, they're a big deal in the paintball renaissance, right?
Yeah.
And where we are today, people I didn't really know before. So that was fun. And I think I had one of the best paintball experiences I've ever had. And it was, we were out there playing a scenario. For whatever reason, a couple of guys were like, hey, we're going to go to the back corner. We're going to go see if we can flank them. So I'm like, that's cool. So I see them start going and everybody on their team is on the left side, on the other side. And I was like, we can just turn the field. So I start calling people with us, right? So I've got this little gaggle with me. So we go on back there. And they're, 50 yards ahead of us or so. We get to where there's a creek. They're another 30 yards ahead. We're closing in on them. And there's some pallets and some structures, some cover by the creek. So I get everybody to stop behind cover. And this little kid stops with me. I don't think about it. He's wearing a jersey. He's carrying some space gun. And I sound 100 years old. And they're, shadowing this kid. I'm like, whatever. He's probably making sure I don't come out here and wipe all the paint off. I was dressed as Deadpool. And I was like, I'm just going to channel Deadpool, right? I was a medic, so I figured I could be a medic for myself, too. It's the woods.
Yeah.
And so we're out there, and so this little kid's he's tweaking, and I'm like, I was like, hey, guys, just stay calm, because you could see the other guys that started to figure out these guys were back there because they shot one dude, right? And the other team starts filling. I was like, y'all stay low, stay quiet. And then I was like, look, we're going to wait until they're right here. They don't know any of us are here. They only know those two guys. So I've got 15 people. They don't even know, right? It's a whole L ambush, old school infantry tactics, right? So these guys are drawing them into the fatal funnel. And this kid is standing there. And I was like, hey, you see that guy? He goes, yeah. I said, he's going to go to that tree and he's going to stop. And when he stops, we're going to shoot him. Well, he stopped one tree earlier, but it was still a good lane. And the ref was like, hey, listen to this guy. He's going to take care of you. And I'm like, he goes, yeah, it's one of the guy's little brothers. It's his first game. This is his first time with a paintball gun. Bro, okay, here, you take my spot, right? So I'm standing right behind him. And I'm like, okay, get your gun. Because he's looking. I was like, no, come back. Get your gun up like you're going to shoot. Okay. When you lean out, keep your gun in front of you, because then all you have to do is pull the trigger. He might have to pull his gun up. So he's watching this guy kind of kneel down. And I was like, he's going to get tired. He's going to stand up to shoot. And when he does, we're going to light him up. And this kid's like, okay. And he's waiting and he's waiting and he's waiting. The anticipation's building, right? This guy stands up and I was like, 3, 2, 1, go. And he starts popping rounds off. I rip a few at the guy, lights the guy up like Christmas, right? This little kid's first experience in paintball. And he's lighting this guy up dead to rights. Throwing this guy's day. And we, got in a gunfight with the rest of the people, but they got slaughtered, right? Our guys had them all from the side. They were looking that way. And that was that kid's first day in paintball. That's the kind of stuff that's so much fun now. Like as one of the older generation, I guess, like in my 40s, when I go play now, I love seeing it through their eyes now, right? I was a kid. I had my time. I had my turn. I got on podiums. It was good fun. I ran my teams. I love seeing the kids play now. The other thing I don't think people know a lot about is the bond, the unspoken bond between team captains. There's this kid, Trevor, love him to death. I've known him since he was like 14. We're down in Orlando, outside of Old Town and everything. And there's these guys down there like, I forget what they like, capoeira type dancing,
Yeah.
Trevor Johnson goes out there and starts like goofing on them. Well, they start closing in around him. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, so I just walk around the back. I've got like a pocket knife. Like, I don't even know what these guys have, right? And I'm like, I'm just not going to leave him in it by himself, right?
Yeah.
And I'm standing there and I'm like, man, this is going to turn ugly. But, I'm a man, right? This is one of my guys. I look up. Ken Barrett and Rob Stottinger, one on either side of me. And I looked at them. They looked at me. They're like, it's going to be good. I'm like, all right.
I'll take Kenan.
The camaraderie in that moment, knowing that, okay, and I don't know where their guys are, right? Because they've got gridlock and trauma. They're all floating around somewhere.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them.
I didn't see them, but I knew that these two guys had come and stood with me because we all knew Trevor. Trevor's a goof, but he's our goof, and you're not gonna stop him. It's just, those are the rules, right? He's with us. So, I think moments like that made paintball so much fun. And
just by accident. We're good though. It had like just stopped.
You're good. Did we get an hour or something?
No. It just, I rested my hand on the mouse pad.
You're fine.
But it had just stopped. So
fine.
That should be fine.
Yeah. So, I think these days found so the guns I've kept, right, are all either from one of my team guns, right? And I'm just sort of, nostalgic about, or they're like, I bought one of the Empire Resurrections because it was one of Simon's first guns that came out and was like a big deal. Reached out to Simon for some parts, and he still had a hinge frame kicking around that he was keeping. He sold it to me, gave me a discount. I didn't even ask, right? Because he's running a business, and I know paintball's not at its apex. Solid guy. He had his wife ship it out to me, send me some other parts. I got that gun running. And to me, that's like, when I look at that, I think about Simon because he's my guy, right? Greg Miller had done a series of Vortex autocockers that were actually SFLs from Shock Tech. So there was like 10 of them that were vertical feed, tricolor fade. And it was the last ones they ran. It was the SFL, the tight curves, all the milling and stuff. And I found one that had the wrong frame on it. This guy, man, I feel bad. I don't remember his name. Anyway, just miracle, right? Like, the guy had the body and had the mismatched gun. He was like, yeah, I'll let it go. Gave me a good price on it. Then he's in Southern California. Killing Time walks in a paintball shop. There are 10 of these guns in the world. In the case, there's this orphan grip frame. He goes, dude, I think I found your grip frame. So, I call in, I give the guy my credit card, he packs it up, he ships it to me like the store does, right? So he takes care of all this for me. I'm like driving back and forth on the road that day. And sure enough, it was the grip frame for that gun.
That's awesome.
It doesn't happen. Nonsense. But then I found out that Mark, like, those were guns that he built out when he was at Shock Tech.
Okay.
And now this is a gun that's like Greg and Mark. And every time I pick it up, and then one of my best friends, Mike Krynas, he had one of those in college when I couldn't afford one. And I thought it was one of the coolest autocockers ever built. And because it was Greg's and because they were, sort of a Southeast thing, those came out of Greenville, South Carolina, right? Yeah. Greg had those done. It was his baby. And I've still got my red autocock, or my red Angel. I had my A4 from the tag days, and it was before they still had the air passage that went around a cop sensor, like a ball break sensor.
Yeah.
And I had like drilled it all the way through the gun. I did a bunch of gunsmithing. My dad was a gunsmith, right? Like, I knew Glenn Palmer. Glenn Palmer was somebody we could call. Bob Long, back in the college days. They sponsored the college teams. They were great guys. So I Palmerized the valves. I did what he would do to tune autococker valves, where you take out the ridge. And, he had posted about how he did it in a couple places. So I get out a file and a Dremel tool, and I'm reworking the valve and doing all this. So I had an Angel A4 that ran at like 125 PSI. And so we go to CFOAs, and Rob Sottinger, they had their matrices, right? Like the DM4s and stuff. And this was the only angel that would sit there right beside it, just ripping out of a halo. And we'd race the guns, and the kids would just swarm, right? Rob didn't even care it was a different gun because it got people to the booth.
Yeah.
We'd be over there just ripping these guns. We're like, it shoots flat like a Matrix, but it's light for the time, right?
Yeah.
And then I did have a Chris Cole 45 grip frame on it. And the guys at 6 Mile, Adam Vaughn, started that back up with his dad, Ernie. And so they, Extreme Paintball in South Carolina. So they restarted the Extreme Paintball field. And there's this kid, Colby, that plays with Adam. I think you talked to Adam recently.
Yeah. Had Adam on. He's a good buddy.
Yeah. I've known Colby since he was little. He doesn't remember me, I don't think. Every time I'd go over there, he'd always jump and be climbing on us and stuff. He's just a kid, right? Love the kid to death. He doesn't know that, right? Because we're older guys, right? And I found Adam told me he was collecting angels. So I went to, there was like a preview day where he was getting his field back open. So I went to the preview day and I ran around and shot my A4 all day. Well, they didn't know I was saying goodbye to my gun. I'd had this gun for, ever. We get to the end of the day. I go to my car. I take my tank and the hopper off of it. I take my barrel off of it. I still got the factory barrel. I've got the original box that came in, everything. I put it all back in the box. I go back and everybody's, coming down from the day, messy, whatever. I was like, Colby, I want you to look at something. He's looking at, dude, this is really cool. I was like, well, this is gathering dust in my garage and I'm not using it. So I want you to use it.
Oh, that's so awesome.
So now you got the 16-year-old kid, he's ugly crying in front of everybody. Just a bro moment, right? But something that, dude, if I died today, these paintball guns, my wife wouldn't know what to do with them, right? To him, that's a memory, and he's still got paintball in front of him, right?
Yeah.
He's gonna run around with Adam. He's gonna play out there at the field. He'll take it out every now and again, shoot some people, put it back. At least somebody's enjoying it.
Yeah.
So I think
I love that.
How do we? When you look at paintball, where are you in it? Where are you in the journey? And what good can you do, right? I think a lot of us get caught up in we go through sort of the trophy hunting phase for ourselves, like hunters do. And then you get to the point where it's just nice to be outside sometimes. You don't even have to shoot anything that day. And so when I went back this year and had a scenario game with Ted and Mark, walking around with old friends, helping the refs, somebody got hurt on the field, we're all helping them stop the game. We're carrying people off the field and they're like, why are you guys helping us? Like, it's just paintball, dude. Like, we're all here, right? So I still love to play. I love the people, and I don't get out as much as I should. There's a guy right here in Taylorsville, Georgia, who's opening up a field, Bartow X Ball or whatever. And so he's gonna have that as like a scrimmage field. And God's funny, he connected us, and I'm like, dude, I'm around the corner. And so he came out, he got some tanks filled for me and stuff, so I could take some guns. And I'm like, I talked to my wife, she's like, dude, if it's around the corner and you can go like on a Saturday morning and coach some kids and come back, you'll enjoy it, have a good time, or like a Sunday afternoon and I can take my kids out, let them see it. It's funny. We'll see what the next season brings, no pun intended. But, after 30 years in paintball, the guns come and go, the teams come and go, but the people, dude, like it's all about the people.
Yeah.
I guess that's sort of my story. I know you were asking a lot about like sort of the Southeast and stuff. I don't know what gaps I could fill in or what questions or whatever.
You gave us so much, like boom. And I love the message. It really is about the people and those bonds you make, going through this weird, crazy game we play.
But I mean, people are going to get married. People are going to lose families. People are going to go through crazy stuff in life. And paintball is just one of those things that connects us. And we go through these things together, right? And I'll be honest, man, when my dad was dying, I was in a big church, but I was teaching. And the problem is when you teach, everybody assumes you're okay. So I was going through a life crisis and everybody's like, oh, well, Rob's a teacher. He's got it figured out. No, because you're busy working. Nobody's checking on you, right? One of my guys from the team, I'm not going to name him. He knows who he is. He was in the Marines at the time. He was stationed in Japan. My dad had died. I was in Georgia getting ready to go back to Belgium for work. Okay. Like I had to leave and go back to Belgium. And, it's almost like going to prison because I didn't have a chance to process everything.
Yeah.
And I played with him in paintball as a kid, right? I knew him. I get a knock on my door. I open the door and all he says is, I love you. And he wraps his arms around me. And now he's 6 foot tall, Marine. He was a leader of one of their fast teams at the time. So he's, as big as me at the time, 200 pounds, solid muscle. And I don't know if he'll ever know how much that meant to me. The guys, when they're working like that, they don't tell people when they're coming and going to protect their family, because
Yeah.
the kind of work they're doing, they put their family in danger. And the fact that he took time when he was home from Japan, the little bit of precious time he had, and he drove more than an hour to come see me and do that. Ted came and checked on me, and then Lane and Rosie, and maybe one or two people outside of paintball, Mark, those are the only people that really checked on me. So, I mean, it's you have these relationships with people, and, there's some really sincere people around us in paintball. And the guys that are running the fields and running the teams, they're putting a lot of their heart into this stuff, and people don't know. Like, they don't realize what people are putting into the game and into the people around them. So, I think a lot of people are going to look back at paintball one day and go, man, it meant a lot. And I don't think they'll realize everything it did mean to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And, these fields, a lot of them aren't making a ton of money, right? Like, it's a side business or a hobby business, really.
It's a tax write-off is what it is. You're not making money in paintball right now in the region, in the little fields.
So they're there for the passion of it, some of my best friends came from the field I started at. So
where was that?
We're all over the place now, and my buddy John is now out in Colorado, and he just opened up his own field, and I got to reconnect with Chris, who was on an early episode, and those are guys that I hadn't got to see in a couple of years, but now we all go down to World Cup together, and it's about going down and seeing each other. It's more of a reunion than anything else, and getting to play with Chris's kids and see them go up through the ranks, kind of taking a step back from playing and spending more time with them out at the field and watching them do their thing. The Clemson thing, I just think it's so cool. And my younger brother was a member of the club. I don't know if I had told you that or not.
Really? When?
When would he have been in college? It would have been 8 to 12 would have been around his time.
I may have met him, coming back and popping in and out, but I doubt it, because I came back some and played with the guys here and there, the 2 or 3 generations after me. After 2003, there was Chris White and a bunch of guys. I can see their face. The other Chris that's red-haired, Sam, some of these guys. And then there's people that are sort of, span the two, like the other Steve. My brain is fried. I've been in meetings for work all day. And then, but there were these generations that come, and, the jerseys change, and the guns change. And, it was fun. I think one of the things I enjoyed the most was the OG Clemson guys. I had people that I ran into this kid, Chad, and he was playing for Kenny, and I may have been playing and I was playing for tag at the time. And Chad comes running down the tape line, right? He's playing for excessive at the time. He goes to do a tape run, whatever, it's part of the game. I just lean out and I just start drilling him on top of the head, because I'm like, I start in the middle and I work up and just, stay on the top of his head. And we're walking through the handshake thing, and he starts to come closer to me, and I'm like, man, not one of Kenny's guys. Like, I'm like, paintball's going to get real for a minute, whatever.
Yeah.
Another story. Anyway. And then he hugs me and he goes, you don't remember me? And I was like, what? He goes, at Mr. Paintball, I was one of the kids that would watch you guys at Clemson. And I loved it because you guys would win, and you never cussed at anybody. You never got in fights. You guys didn't cheat. Now, if I shoot you and you don't come off and you shoot me, it doesn't count. That's not cheating. That's just being fair. But he was like, you never realize who's watching, right? And that meant so much to me. And I don't think he ever realized that. We were at that 10-man, and I remember Matt Davis, he comes out and he's shooting one of the guys. Sean shoots him from one side, and I give him 2 right here, because I don't know, Sean shot him from the other side. He spun up, right? So he turns around to engage, and there's a picture of me doing this because I'm setting my gun down. Like, what's going on? And people are like, oh, they're about to go at it, blah, blah, blah. People are like, how did it go? And I was like, yeah, Matt was cool about it, because we're adults now. And I was like, no, it's fine. We talked it out, but paintball got real for a minute again. I'm like, hold on, I like this gun. When you're a kid, you're like, when you're adult, you're like, hold on, this is expensive. Okay, let's go, But no, he's a good guy. He just got a little intense.
Yeah, no, he is a good guy.
Yeah.
Obviously, he runs around the Carolinas a lot.
Phenomenal player. Like,
Yeah.
these days he's got a little backman gravity. I do too. So it is what it is.
How did the X-Ball thing, how did they approach the college teams? Was there a league yet at the time for the college teams? Or
So I think it came to us through our sponsors. They reached out probably through Chris Rail, who I got to know through college paintball. It's funny, Chris and I both look at the world and see the problems and want to solve them. Chris is more left-leaning. I'm more right-leaning politically, whatever. But it's funny because we've gotten into some very spirited debates over the years on Facebook. And people are like, how are you guys still friends? Because we would get like, oh, we'd be going at it, right? And then it's like, man, I hope you're doing well. Tell your wife, hey. And he's like, yeah, you too. Tell kiss your daughter. People are like, what is this? And I'm like, I've known Chris for 20 years. What do I do? Throw the guy away because he's voting on the other side?
Yeah.
Anyway, Chris is good people. But no, I forget where that was going. Oh, no. So I think they organized it through Chris.
Okay.
So I think Chris reached out. Mike Kreines was handling a lot of our sponsor relations and scheduling at the time. And I think it happened through them. I was the captain of the team, but Mike did all the real work, to be honest. I was never the admin guy, right? Like I was here's how we're going to shoot people. Here's the field plan. Here's the layout. Here's how we're coaching. No, you're not in charge. Sit down, I was the captain, but Mike ran it for us. He took care of all the details. Yeah. And he's still bouncing around, playing a game here and there. He's up in New York still. Steve Smith's still out there. I don't think he plays too much. They tried to get us together to go play, and then a friend of mine, I'd lost a friend. Anyway, she made a really bad choice, and I just didn't have the heart. I just could not. I just mentally couldn't go to the game. And I missed Steve's wedding that year too, but. We go through these things together, right? Like that's paintball, that's life. But the X-Ball thing, it started there, and then I wound up playing it. That was my favorite format. And I liked it probably when we had about 30 minutes of field time.
Okay.
About that, maybe it was 45, I forget how it was, but I like going out there and running hard because you would play for a couple hours, and then you'd go away. And you come and you play for a couple hours, and you go away. And so you could show up at the field with everybody. You could do all your stuff, go home, eat, be with the guys. You could go back and watch games, see the vendors, hang out, whatever. The regional events where you're like, oh, I got to be at this field. I got to run to this field. I got to run to that field. Oh, no, we're waiting. We're on two fields at the same time.
Yeah.
Good luck. That kind of stuff. The way that Rosie and Lane were able to run the PSP, they ran very well-scheduled, well-laid-out events, and the experience as a player was a lot of fun. Now, on the reffing side, it was a lot of work, right? You're out there all day. They took care of the refs, too. But I think X-Ball, because you also got to know the other teams better, too, right? Because you spent more time playing that team. And then when we would practice, we'd have, teams would come into Ultimate, and we'd set up practice days, right? Jack's Warriors, Paul and his crew would come up, more good people. And, we'd get together, and Doc would come up, whoever, and what we would do is if there were 3 teams, whoever wasn't playing was reffing. If there were 4 teams, then what I would do is whoever wasn't playing was still reffing, right? But the teams would mix in so that there was no, nobody could say anything about favoritism or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there's so many things that have changed over the years, but I still think that what X-Ball gave was, I think that's the most athletic version of the sport.
30
you have
minute.
to be able to run. You have to have endurance. You have to be able to stay in it for about an hour or two, right? I've run a half marathon's about the most I've run, steady. But it's one of those things where you get to a certain point. Like for me, it was like mile 11, right? But even with paintball, you'd have guys that if your first string couldn't cut it, you could outrun their first string. You could just grind them down and then run down their second string and, bump up your points. And then sometimes their front string would, they'd catch a second win and come back and battle back. And then my favorite were overtime points, right? Because then all bets are off, man. Somebody's going to do something crazy or they're just going to lock it down and hold it. I remember Gridlock was out there one time. The other team, I forget was it Raiders or Warriors? Who was it? I want to think it was Warriors. Anyway, I just remember John Tink walking out, picking up the flag, and sitting down for 26 minutes. And Ken, and this is when they had the coach's box was opposite the pit. they didn't have anybody in the coach's box to throw the flag. They changed the rules, right? They changed the rules after this. But Ken even yelled over there, he goes, bro, I'm sorry. It's the game, because they were playing for money, right?
Yeah.
They were playing to win. And John sat there for 26 minutes because they didn't have anybody to throw the flag in. Kenny's team was up on points. They ran the clock. I'm sitting there as the ultimate ref going, this is the rules. Like,
Yeah,
I got the rule book in my pocket. I'm like, yep. So we sit there and we just stared at the clock for 26 minutes in Orlando. It is a long time to stare at a clock when the other team's over there like crying in the pits. But
man,
no, I tell you, Rob Staudinger and Kenny, very strategic guys when you talk about what the goals were on a field and like at a tournament. Okay, we got to get to finals, and then we won't, because they would still chase points for tiebreaker stuff. Like they were playing chess. Everybody else is playing checkers. They were out there playing chess. And, the guys from Strange too, it wasn't just some of the guys would go out there and just like, oh, we're going to play to win. And it's like, yeah, but you're playing like game by game. These guys are playing the year.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they're playing the whole series, right?
They're looking at the
strategy
whole
for the
picture.
whole series.
Yeah.
Learned a lot from those guys.
I get to have Ken on next week. So
no way. Tell him I said, hey,
I will.
He's good.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I kind of grew up around him a little bit, in and out. Played one event for him when I decided to come back. But at one point,
I used to love getting on the field with Ken. We both shot each other. It's fine, right? But I love the way he really had a knack. He had one guy named Lucky that played for him, phenomenal player. Yeah. Lucky and I one time we're at Sam's practice for method, and we're doing snap shooting, and we come out and like I'm serious, like 8 times in a row, shot each other's paintball out of the. We were just locked in on. We were just synced up. Never seen anything like it. I mean, just Ken had some really phenomenal players, and he coached them very well.
Yeah, fantastic coach.
Well, I don't think he let anybody stay on the field if they weren't giving it everything they had.
No.
And I think a lot of people didn't have it to pull that out of their players.
Yeah, no, he was able to pull a lot of talent out of his players at a lot of different levels, for sure. He just won the ICPL Cup. I don't know if you got to see that or not.
No, I'm not too much in. I know, like some of our guys, they went and played for Sabre Wolves last year, had a good year. I'm glad they're enjoying it. I really am.
Yeah. Oh, well, man, I've actually kept you way longer than I anticipated.
My wife and kids are ready for dinner, so yeah.
Yeah, so thank you for your time so much. I really appreciate anything you want to say before I stop the recording.
Support your local field and be there for your teammates. That's all that really matters. Everything else, nobody's going to remember who won what game. They're always going to remember how their teammates treated them. Thank you, Hunter.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Planet Paintball podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Whether you're out there grinding in the divisional pits or chasing dreams on the pro stage, remember, it's all about the passion, the hustle, and the love for the sport. Shout out to 1023 Sportswear for sponsoring the show. Don't forget to use code Planet Paintball at checkout for 20% off your order. Gear up, save big. Until next time, keep grinding, keep growing, and we'll see you back here on the Planet Paintball podcast